Dear Formula One, we didn't want it to come to this, but you left us with no choice. Over the years, you seem to have forgotten how to run a motorsport, but fear not, because the most knowledgeable person in the world wants to help you out. But sadly, she just stepped on a landmine. When you do things right, nobody says anything, which I guess is the problem, because when you do things wrong, oh boy do we like to moan. Sure, these things are often trivial, like, just the odd bit of terrible race direction here and there. But as I've already alluded to, there have been a lot of things you've done to upset us recently, some of which just can't be excused. So let this video be a message to you, from the fans. Take your pens out, Formula One people, because this is how you run a motorsport. The first instance of you failing to do your job which springs to mind dates all the way back to the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix last year. Under the safety car conditions, there were marshals on the track, which is fairly normal, but for some reason you forgot to let the drivers know this, and it ended up in Lance Stroll, one of the lap cars who was allowed to unlap himself, as is often the case during safety car periods, almost hitting a marshal down into Acqua Minerale while going at nearly full speed. Do you really think that we're just going to ignore something like that? We're all extremely lucky that Stroll saw that marshal, because if he didn't, then what was just a bit of silly race direction could have become a fatal accident. Perhaps this might have been a one-off case though. Well, apparently not, because the same thing happened in the Bahrain Grand Prix, under safety car conditions, when a marshal ran directly in front of Lando Norris's car to get to the burning racing point of Sergio Perez. Now, it's all well and good having marshals who will risk their lives to save other people, but this wasn't a case of someone risking their life to save another. This was just stupid. Seeing as we're on the subject of the Bahrain Grand Prix, I believe we also need to offer you some praise, because if it weren't for your continuous push for driver safety, then we could have seen a lot worse than what we did that day. I genuinely admire your sticking with the halo, even though many people said it was ugly, because I've lost count of how many accidents it stopped from being much, much worse. However, not everything is good in terms of your attitudes to driver safety. For instance, when you allowed Alessio De Leda to race in Monaco, despite him genuinely being over 107% of the leader's time all weekend. I know you reserved the right to allow a driver to race if they show a good enough pace in other sessions, but seriously? De Leda was 7 seconds off the pace in practice as well, so what reason did you have to let him race in the most difficult circuit on the calendar? He was lapped within 20 laps in the first race and 19 in the second. That's dangerously slow. What if he was braking so early that a faster driver didn't expect it and crashed into the back of him? And how about everything you've done off track? It seems you're always out to get us creators, and especially more recently you've been striking videos down like there's no tomorrow, even though it's plain to see that videos from creators like me and FP1 are more likely to increase your audience engagement. By attacking us in this way, does it really reflect well on you? It of course could be argued that you own the rights to these videos, because you obviously do, but it just seems a bit hypocritical to say you want to increase your fan base, then proceed to hide all your races behind a paywall, and strike down any content focused around Formula One. Like, if you have people who make meme reviews of your races, generating talking points out of them where there usually wouldn't be anything to say, then don't just strike them down. Of course, most fans don't feel the issue of this, as it's only the smallest minority of us who take the time to make these videos, but there are individuals who have almost 200,000 subscribers, and yet they still have to tread a fine, copyrighted line so as to avoid coming under your ban hammer. Hell, we all had to change our YouTube usernames back at the end of last year because you weren't happy with us mentioning F1 in them. I thought you were supposed to be Liberty Media, not Constraint Media. Speaking of stupid decisions, what's all this about young fans having a short attention span? If we prepared to sit through the Monaco Grand Prix, then clearly we care about your sport, so show us that you care back. And after this Monaco Grand Prix, everyone was talking about the shoddy TV direction, when the directors couldn't seem to keep the cameras pointing on the action, but you still haven't addressed the issue. Monaco is the last circuit to be allowed to direct its own races, but why? If the directors can't seem to actually direct, then why do you let them do it? If you're paying your own TV directors to do as good a job as they do, then maybe the best thing to do is let them do their job. Of course, I doubt the majority of your fans can do any better than you on these issues that I've mentioned, but we for sure know that you can. So please, take some notes from this video and put your brains together to fix these issues. F1 has been perfectly good in the past few years, but it seems that in 2020 and 2021, you've dropped the ball a bit. Apart from the things I've mentioned, I think you're doing an alright job, hence why this video isn't too long. But that doesn't mean you can rest on your laurels, because as we all know, in Formula One, if you stand still, you go backwards. Sincerely, the fans.